On a cold December evening in 1170, the hallowed stones of Canterbury Cathedral bore witness to an unthinkable act. 4 knights, fueled by a king's frustrated words, brutally murdered Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, at his own altar. This was not merely a crime. It was a sacrilege, a political earthquake that reverberated across Christendom. The man who inadvertently triggered this horror was King Henry II, a monarch of profound contradictions. He was a king whose casual outburst led to the death of his former friend, yet he also laid the foundations for medieval Europe's most sophisticated legal system. His reign, and those that preceded it, reveal a pivotal transformation. This is the story of how medieval monarchy evolved from a system of brute conquest and personal power into one of structured, civilized government. It is a narrative of innovation, conflict, and profound personal cost, where the very fabric of a nation was forged in fire and blood. The journey begins with Henry I, who seized the English throne in 1100. He inherited a kingdom weary from the tyrannical rule of his brother William Rufus, and understood that lasting power required more than just military might. Henry recognized the urgent need for justice, efficiency, and robust institutions to secure his reign. His vision quickly translated into groundbreaking administrative innovations. The Coronation Charter, issued upon his ascension, was a revolutionary document. It promised to govern according to law, curbing the abuses that had plagued previous reigns and setting a new standard for royal accountability. Henry established the Exchequer, a central accounting office that brought unprecedented systematic finance to the kingdom. This sophisticated system tracked royal revenues and expenditures, transforming the haphazard collection of taxes into a professional operation. He also initiated the use of royal justices, who traveled in circuits across the shires. These itinerant judges standardized law and brought royal authority directly to local communities, beginning the long process of unifying England under a single legal framework. The royal court itself underwent a profound bureaucratic transformation. Clerks, skilled in administration and record-keeping, began to replace courtiers whose influence was based solely on personal favor. The increased use of written records and standardized royal writs ensured consistency and efficiency in governance, laying the groundwork for a modern state. Henry further solidified his position through strategic alliances, notably his marriage to Edith of Scotland. This union was more than just a political match. It symbolically united the Norman conquerors with the Anglo-Saxon lineage, fostering a sense of national identity. However, the fragility of hereditary monarchy was brutally exposed in 1120 with the White Ship disaster. His only legitimate son and heir, William Atheling, perished along with many young nobles in a shipwreck. This catastrophic loss plunged Henry's succession plans into disarray. Henry spent the remainder of his reign desperately trying to secure the throne for his daughter Matilda. He compelled his barons to swear allegiance to her, but upon his death in 1135, his nephew, Stephen of Blois, seized the crown. This act of usurpation ignited a devastating civil war, plunging England into a period known as the Anarchy. The Anarchy was a brutal civil war that pitted King Stephen against Empress Matilda, Henry II's designated heir. This prolonged conflict tested the very strength and resilience of England's nascent institutions, threatening to unravel all the administrative progress made by Henry I. Stephen, though a capable knight, lacked the administrative genius and foresight of his predecessor. Matilda, on the other hand, possessed a strong claim to the throne and was supported by powerful barons who honored their oath to her. Their struggle was a clash of personalities and principles, each believing they were the rightful ruler. Key events marked the ebb and flow of this devastating conflict. In 1141, Stephen was captured at the Battle of Lincoln, bringing Matilda tantalizingly close to victory. However, her arrogance and inability to win over the citizens of London led to her swift expulsion from the capital. The conflict continued with dramatic episodes, such as Matilda's daring escape from Oxford Castle in 1142, fleeing across frozen landscapes. Such moments underscored the futility and personal toll of the prolonged struggle, as neither side could achieve a decisive victory. The consequences of the anarchy were dire for England. Widespread private warfare erupted as barons built unlicensed castles, asserting their own authority in the absence of a strong central power. The populace suffered immense oppression, and royal authority collapsed, leading to a breakdown of law and order. Finally, after nearly 2 decades of strife, the Treaty of Wallingford in 1153 brought an end to the conflict. Stephen was allowed to remain king for the rest of his life, but crucially, Matilda's son Henry was recognized as his successor. This resolution demonstrated the immense difficulty of restoring lost royal authority once it had been allowed to erode. When Henry II ascended the throne in 1154, he inherited a kingdom scarred by civil war and desperate for stability. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Henry was less interested in martial glory and more focused on the intricate details of administration and governance. He was a king determined to rebuild and strengthen the royal authority that had been so severely weakened. His reign ushered in a profound legal revolution. The Assize of Clarendon in 1166 was a landmark decree that established pleas of the crown and expanded the reach of royal courts. This act created a truly national legal system, effectively breaking the local monopolies on justice held by feudal lords. Under Henry II's, royal justices developed legal principles that applied uniformly throughout the kingdom. This systematic approach led to the development of what we now know as common law, aiming for rational and consistent justice. It unified England as a legal community, ensuring that all subjects, regardless of their local lord, could seek justice from the king's courts. However, Henry's ambition to bring all subjects under royal law inevitably led to conflict with the church. The Constitutions of Clarendon in 1164 were his attempt to bring criminous clerks, clergy accused of crimes, under royal jurisdiction. Henry viewed this as a matter of basic justice, but the church saw it as a direct attack on its ancient privileges and independence. At the heart of this escalating conflict stood Thomas Becket. Once Henry's chancellor and closest friend, Becket was appointed Archbishop of Canterbury by the king, who expected his loyal ally to support his reforms. Instead, Becket transformed into a zealous defender of church rights, becoming Henry's most formidable opponent. The relationship between Henry II and Thomas Becket was once intensely personal, a bond of deep friendship and shared ambition. Henry had elevated Becket from humble origins, making him his chancellor and confidant. But upon his appointment as Archbishop of Canterbury, Becket underwent a profound transformation. He shed his worldly ways and became an uncompromising champion of the church, directly opposing the king he once served. The conflict escalated rapidly. In 1164, Becket refused to accept the Constitutions of Clarendon, which sought to limit the church's legal independence. Fearing for his life, he fled to France, beginning 6 years of exile. His flight became a propaganda disaster for Henry, as Becket skillfully portrayed himself as a martyred saint persecuted by a tyrannical king. Years of diplomatic maneuvering and papal intervention eventually led to an apparent reconciliation in July 1170. Becket returned to England, but the peace was short-lived. Almost immediately, he excommunicated several bishops and royal officials who had supported Henry during his absence. This defiant act reignited Henry's fury. Upon hearing of Becket's actions, Henry famously cried out, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" These words, spoken in a moment of extreme frustration, were interpreted by 4 of his knights as a direct command. On December 29, 1170, they confronted Becket in Canterbury Cathedral and brutally murdered him at the altar. The aftermath was a political catastrophe for Henry. Becket was instantly revered as a martyred saint, with miracles reported at his tomb. Pilgrims flocked to Canterbury, turning it into one of Europe's most important pilgrimage sites. The murder shocked Christendom and severely damaged Henry's reputation. To atone for his role in the murder, Henry performed a public penance at Canterbury in 1174. He walked barefoot through the streets and submitted to a flogging by the monks. This dramatic act demonstrated the immense power of public opinion and the very real limits of royal authority, even for a king as powerful as Henry II. The events of this period are deeply interconnected, forming a continuous narrative of evolving governance. Henry Broussard's administrative innovations, particularly the Exchequer and royal justices, provided the essential foundation upon which Henry II could build his legal reforms. The devastating period of the anarchy, though chaotic, ultimately tested and proved the resilience of these nascent institutions, demonstrating their necessity for a stable kingdom. Henry II's reign left an indelible legacy, establishing fundamental principles of royal law, due process, and consistent justice that would shape England for centuries. He created a unified legal system that transcended local customs, laying the groundwork for the common law tradition. Yet his reign also starkly revealed the inherent contradictions and tensions within medieval monarchy. Kings, despite claiming absolute authority, constantly faced limits imposed by law, custom, and the powerful force of public opinion, especially when intertwined with religious authority. The Becket crisis perfectly illustrated how personal relationships and institutional loyalties could collide with devastating and unforeseen consequences. The personal costs of kingship were immense. Henry II, despite his monumental achievements, died a defeated man, betrayed and abandoned by his own sons. His story highlights the profound isolation and relentless demands of the royal role. While his dynasty eventually faltered, his institutional achievements outlasted him, shaping the future of England. The evolution of monarchy was far from complete. The challenges faced by Henry II would continue to haunt his successors. The next chapter in this unfolding story will explore the reign of Richard III, the Crusades, and the tumultuous rise of King John, revealing how the crown continued to grapple with new challenges and further define its power.